FORA.tv. The world is thinking.
Bruce Wagner's memorial. She'd immersed herself in the tsunami, ancient legend come to life before the contemporary world. In some ways, she felt privileged because whether one knew it or not, it was the defining event of hers, Lou's, and everyone's lifetime, like being on the planet during Vesuvius, Pompeii, Krakatoa, and maybe Hiroshima. She knew it was all wrong and that it didn't make sense, but in her mind, the death in New Orleans was closer to the disappearance of the World Trade Center. She thought about the dogs and the elephants that nudged people to higher ground, dolphins urging fishing boat captains to the relative safety of deeper seas, and afterward, when scarred, sentient pachyderms lifted detritus from the injured or aided in the disinterment of the dead. All her life, Joan had felt a strange closeness to that region, as her mother did, now racking her brains for this idiot's assignment, something asinine and collegiate about it, civic science fair, building the perfect memorial, though if she had her way, not just for Richies who got tree bough hanged, but for everyone who died and everyone who lived, all the walking dead and the miracle folk, the incognizant motherless children, a monument to the broken and the unbreakable. Impossible how to memorialize a myth of such potency. Now was the time of the memorial. It was her time. Yet to note the absence and the void, to note it, was a philosophical conundrum. There wasn't syntax for such a challenge, architectural or otherwise. What would be the point? Was she capable of erasing herself or of banishing hubris? Only from silence could the semblance of such a thing be born. Maybe that's why she rode Freeburg bareback, subconscious thought being that life growing inside of her was the only answer, an antidote to egotism. At least it would be a starting point. Womb to tomb. But what was a grave anyway? Something to mark the memory of a spirit. And what was spirit but the embodiment of myth? She laughed as she suddenly thought of Pradeep telling her how his favorite, Ali G, sang the last phrase of the national anthem as, "Your home in the grave." Sri Lanka was called India's teardrop. Only this morning, she read something in the paper about a killer convicted on the strength of DNA, tears the little girl had shed onto the seat of his car. We are all made of water. And again, the images seized her. Being fucked by Lou, fury of his DNA, her fury as well. He'd gripped her long hair. It had been 20 summers since some rough Berkeley Romeo did that in back of a station wagon. Mournful Napa wind howling through reconnoitered Memorial Grove as she got rimmed, rattled, and rolled in that haunted house sleigh. It began to rain, great backwater sheets of it. Then Joan, embarrassed at her own wetness, hoping it wasn't a turnoff. It had been a turnoff for some of the men in her life, but they were babies. That's just how she was physically wired. She got so wet sometimes they'd ass fuck her by mistake. There it was, so true, body as earth and tsunami, crass, dumb analogy, Fucking is access to myth. Fucking was myth. Recession and floodwater, corporeal heat, and gaseous gale force cunt fart wind. Magnificent oblivion as tears, secretions, and semen dissolved and commingled. The blacking out animal rush of hearts and minds to higher ground. Eyes opening, closing all veils. Thresholds akimbo, a tremble, reflecting pools, reflecting ambient absence, sounds and swells and swelling, screams and shadows, gorged and engorged, and failure to outrun the deluge. System collapse. That's how we were wired. That's how we vanished, kicking and screaming, and sepulchral acquiescence. All the same, the sacramental memorial of two bodies as they rutted their way to birthing and deathing and grubby celestial silence. I'm a mem, and I can't help but love you so. She wished those two had died in the Maldives because that 1,000-mile-long sea-level spine of atoll lent itself more readily to earthen monument making. How awful she had become. A leech in the architectural house of God, slutty, second-rate talent who'd ceased to know herself even through multiple readings of her Vedic astrological chart. It comically, macabrically ordained that she caretake others, her rising sign in codependence, moon in the house of enabling. She especially knew how to make men feel good as she roiled and withered, washing away from the inside her cervix of village brittle with sea branches, vertiginous seahorses, tumbling mothers, and drowned wide-eyed children gone saltwater ass over heels. She was that woman in the Andaman Islands, paid 2 rupees 4 cents by the local government in compensation for the tidal wave death of her babies. There she was. There was Joan, Joan of Arc, Joan of the disastrous, diaphanous, moon-pulled tide, parasite of Melville's Maldive shark, riding the predaceous wave. Sleek little pilot fish, azure and slim. That was she, how alert in attendance be. From his saw-pit mouth, from his charnel of maw, they have nothing of harm to dread, but liquidly glide on his ghastly flank, or before his Gorgonian head, or lurk in the port of serrated teeth, in white triple tiers of glittering gates, and there find a haven where perils abroad, an asylum in jaws of the fates. They are friends, and friendly they guide him to pray, yet never partake of the treat. Eyes and brains as the dotard, lethargic and dull, pale ravener of horrible meat. She picked up the phone to call her mother.